you, Bill.
Thanks, Richard. Great to be here, and this is our first shot at doing a talk from the Mongolia trip, so hopefully it will go okay. As Richard mentioned, it was a general trip, but we tried to prepare as well as we could for what we were going to see, particularly along the way of butterflies. And some of the materials are in the back on the table there, so you're welcome to take a look at that. There's maps, there's Mongolian stamps of butterflies, there's Mongolian stamps of Grateful Dead bears, barely related. And also some of my books, some of my poetry books, and a book that was done, a small chapbook that was done particularly for how we discovered on this particular trip. And those are available if people are interested in buying them. I'm glad to sign them. Anyway, I thought we'd start out with a few maps to give us geographical and biological grounding as we get into this. People often refer to Mongolia as sort of the egg on the back of the chicken, with the chicken being China below it and Russia above it. Use your imagination. Chicken head, chicken breast, chicken tail. And kissed to the west by Kazakhstan. The large lake up here in Russia is Lake Baikal. And that's where some of the people we're traveling with have been working on nature interpretation. And one of the places we went, which was Lake Hofskull, was in that Baikal drainage. Also, you'll see where North and South Korea are. And we came in by way of Incheon Airport in Korea. Another map of Mongolia, and a few things just to point out. There's a series of mountain ranges, the Altai running from the far west, clear down here to the south, and this far. The Gobi Desert is just to the north of this, and the Hangai mountain range in here, and the Kentai up in this area. To sort of give you a sense of what the climate is like, I put together this slide, and it's latitude-wise, it runs from about where Laramie, Wyoming would be in the U.S. to Saskatchewan to the north. It's inland, it's set back from the sea, so it doesn't have the moderation of the ocean climates. It's quite cold in the winter, relatively warm in the summer, depending on where you are. And it's about a fifth the size of the 48 states. Some habitat zones, again, to give you a sense of the range of habitats. You have taiga to the north, up against the Russian border. And then as you move south, and you're getting lower, and you're getting drier as you go south. So you've got the forested steppe, the darker green, or the medium green, the unforested steppe, which is light green, and then you get into the Gobi, which is actually has sub-regions. You have the red Gobi and the yellow Gobi and the black Gobi. And here in the extreme south, the desert zone is pretty much uninhabitable. Oh, I was going to mention too, you're welcome to ask questions. There's quite a bit of material. I'll try and keep it moving along, but if people have got questions, feel free to shoot.
So Bill, what's the difference between the desert and the desert steppe?
We only got up to the edge of the desert per se, but what we saw were dunes, sand dunes, that sort of thing, which you don't see in the Gobi itself. The Gobi is flat, pretty much hard packed. At least in the northern part, wherever you drive, you're driving over onions, or wild onions, and so you get out of the vehicle and there's this odor of chives and onions in the air. It's the main thing.
In which area you're saying is like that?
Well, that's like the southern steppe and the northern Gobi. Okay, I guess we got that. A quick sense of where we were in Mongolia. So I intended to mention this earlier, I'm mentioning it here now. Mongolia has got about 3 million people in it. So a fifth the size of the 48 states, 3 million people. That's like 5 people per square mile. And half of those people live in the capital, which is Ulaanbaatar, which is shortened, everybody refers to it as UB, like we do to LA. So 3 million people, 60 million herd animals. Particularly now, a lot of goats, because Kashmir is hot, and they raise a lot of Kashmir goats. So you've got goats, sheep, cattle, horses, and camels are the primary. And then you've got, right, yak cattle.
What a great name for an animal, yak.
Anyway, so where we traveled, we came into Ulaanbaatar, came in from Korea, and trip out here to Huskai National Park. It was a day trip. Then flew up here to Lake Hofskel region, spent 5-6 days there, came back, and then traveled by vehicle or a caravan of Land Cruisers, 5 Land Cruisers, and a cook wagon following us, and made this loop almost up to the Russian border, then south, hooked back, and then south into the southern Gobi, and then back north to Ulaanbaatar. Don't have too much to say about the wildlife in Korea, but piranhas seem to be all the rage. I think some have been released. I don't understand Korean. We watched for about an hour as they spoke to the scientists. I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but it seemed quirky, and that's worth reporting.
He's saying how good they are to eat.
So they're an introduced species from South America?
Yes, and I think I've heard from other people that they're unlikely to live a full year there. It's too cold, that they would not survive a full year. So I think it may have
They're
been
being farmed.
a short-lived panic. They farm them
Yeah.
in Korea? Or-
Yeah, because they're good to eat.
Are they?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Well, maybe I got it wrong. They're good to eat you.
We're good to eat.
It's sporting at any rate.
Okay, this was our Bible, and I understand that Jonathan has dealt with all of these folks, the authors, who are all Russians. I believe this was published in 2008, 2009, and it's a fairly expensive book, so got it on interlibrary loan, scanned most of it, put it in a 3-ring binder, and took it with us, and that binder is back on the table, along with the other materials. And what it consists of mostly is a series of photographs, dorsal, ventral, multiple photographs for each species, and then these description, which is just a description of where they've been collected and their best estimate of the range within Mongolia for that particular species.
And all in English?
Yes.
Yes, yes it is, as a matter of fact.
Zsolt Bolin, he's Czech.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, the Czechs have done a lot of stuff in Mongolia, so.
Yeah.
A lot of natural history.
Well, they used to be behind the Iron Curtain, so they had, a special relationship.
Yes, and Mongolia was communist for about 1920 to 1990. So that's another intricacy to their history and what we were seeing. Quick thing about the faunal realms, we're noticing, as everybody probably who's traveled in these areas notice, when you go to Europe or you go to spots in Asia, there's some strong similarities between the critters you're seeing, including butterflies, in Palearctic and the Nearctic, together referred to as the whole Arctic. And I think you'll recognize some of those similarities as we proceed. And to sort of get a sense of that, this is a graphic I generated, pretty simplified, but using the taxonomy that's in the Butterflies in Mongolia book, primarily a list of families and subfamilies. And these are families and subfamilies that you'll see in Mongolia or in Cascadia or in Washington. So ones in black occur in both places. Those families and subfamilies are both in Mongolia and Cascadia. The ones in red are just in Mongolia. The The ones in green are just in Cascadia. So in this case, the metal marks and the milkweed butterflies. So it gives you a sense that there's some pretty strong overlap on that higher level. And of course, the overlap becomes less as you get down into genera and species. So flying in from Korea to the capital. It sits down in a basin. It's got some of the worst air pollution in the world, particularly in the winter. Heated by coal, that's what the stack is there. And we're told that these ponds are sewage treatment ponds at the edge of town. You also, in the lower figure here, see the dots on the edge of the urban area. Well, those are gears. And gears are what the Mongolians call yurts. Yurt is a Russian name. Gear is the Mongolian name for the same kind of structure. A lot of people have moved in from the countryside, and as things, well, as Ulaanbaatar has developed, and also as things have gotten tougher to live outside the urbanization, a lot of families have moved in. Sometimes they move back. Okay, so our first day trip here, as I mentioned, to Hustai National Park, just a little bit west of Ulaanbaatar. And this is a national park where the Taki, or Przewalski's horse, has been reintroduced. It was pretty much extirpated in Mongolia. There were a few collectors in Europe who had individuals, and those are what were the stock to bring this wild horse back to Mongolia. We stopped at the spring, and here it's interesting that we had Hayden's ringlet being talked about tonight, because here's another Cyanyntha. And I was telling John that the ones in quotes, those common names, I did that. Because I couldn't find any common names for them, and I figured things needed common names. So I put those on Flickr, and I think I'm going to check after a year and after 2 years and see if anybody out there is using these common names. Probably not, but it's an experiment. So it's interesting that ring of islets on the dorsal or ventral hind wing is pretty much reminiscent of the Hayden's. And then we have the blue here. It's a species, Polymatus, Amanda's blue. That's not a genus that we've got here, but you'll notice how similar the critter looks to blues that we do have here.
Almost looks like a Cepheolus on top.
The plants?
The Amanda's blue.
Oh.
Really big.
Oh, yeah. So the blue is Palearctic in distribution. Larval plant is a species of vetch, and the larvae is ant-tended, as are certainly some of ours here. And the Cyanymphus, of course, larvae feeds on grass, primarily poa, bluegrass. And I think both of them, well, okay, that species is found from the Urals to Korea. And the Amanda's blue, like I said, is pretty much throughout the Antarctic. These are the horses that showed up while we were looking at butterflies. Just came to the spring. It was pretty cool. And, oops.
It looks like they should be called Przewalski's donkeys.
You know, all the horses there, horses are really important to the Mongolians, but they're all fairly short status, or short horses, but they don't like them to be referred to as ponies. And they take that personally. I don't know how they think about the line of donkeys,
Are they friendly?
but these,
They're
you know,
wild. Yeah.
they're wild, but yeah, these passed fairly close to us. I think in this particular park, they're a little habituated to people. In the other park, we were told that where they've been brought in, they try and keep them separated from people, and they're a little more wary.
That's pretty cool.
So would this have been native to the area?
Yes. Yes. Another large critter there, the red deer, which is, if not the same species as our elk, are obviously very closely related. Here reference to them being the same species group, whatever exactly taxonomically that means.
We like reindeer. Do you have reindeer there?
They do. They ride reindeer there.
Oh,
There's some great videos on available out there. The rangers up in Hustai, of the rangers going out in the winter riding on their reindeer to make sure there's no poaching and whatnot. Okay, so now we're set to travel by air up to Lake Hofstal. Primary reason we're going there, one of the primary reasons, is the Nadam Festival, where it happens throughout the country in various towns. Celebrates the three manly sports. Anybody want to guess? What the
Wrestling
three-
is one of them.
Wrestling is one.
Horse racing.
Horse racing is two. We have Mongolian experts here. And the third one.
Eating their butt.
Their button is really good.
Like-
Oh, no, it's not.
Really good. Really good. Much better than here. Archery.
Oh.
But archery sort of tailed off, and the wrestling and the horse racing. We got our first introduction to the vagaries of Mongolian travel. We sat in the airport for 12 hours waiting for the plane we were supposed to take. We never did hear why we had the delay. One theory was that some rich Mongolian had commandeered the plane for his own purposes. Anyway, so we got into Moran and drove to Lake Hofstal in the dark. Video, a little sense of what the vehicle ahead of us looked like. Lake Hofstal is one of the, I guess, half dozen or dozen ancient lakes in the world. Lake that's over 1 million years old. Outside of the capital, the places we stayed were in yurt camps. So we stayed in the yurts. This one had a wood stove inside. A young lady came in every day and lit the fire, got things warmed up. It was pretty chilly here, and at times it was raining pretty hard. The erosion here along the edge of Lake Hofstal, I think, is associated with power boats and that sort of thing, which are new to the area, and I don't think they're allowed, but as anywhere in the world, if you have rules but they aren't enforced, and things fall apart. So I think that's what's going on here. Again, as I mentioned, the horse, very important to Mongolians, and we saw a lot of horse travel. So here's a few pictures from the Nadam Festival. The wrestling in the upper left-hand corner, much like Greco-Roman. Important. Below that, some girls, one of them in traditional dress. A lot of shamanism still in Mongolia. It's dancers, it's a dance troupe, but the dancer here get up and moves, inspired by shamanistic practices. See some Europeans in the crowd, but also plenty of Mongolians. The horse racing is mostly long distance, like 15, 20, 25 kilometers, and it's adolescents that are riding it, mostly young boys, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Is this where they eat amanita mushrooms?
A little further north, but yeah, among the reindeer people, I think, particularly, but also the Finns. I'm not sure so much about amanitas here. It's associated more with Finland in that area.
Oh, no, I know a lot of central Siberian tribes.
Okay, but true. Yeah.
So they eat Amanita muscaria?
Yeah.
They do, and I don't know if I want to. They save their urine in pouches, and then they call their reindeer in, and the reindeer drink it and love it. It's a true story, but probably not unrelated to butterflies.
Is it related to the mushrooms? Pigs eat the mushrooms?
Yeah, the herders eat the mushrooms and then save
The
their own
urine?
urine. Yeah.
So the animals get something out of that.
Right, right.
Well, actually, I heard another story, but hey, I heard that it was recycled.
Yeah.
Other people would drink it.
Oh, that may be too. That may be too.
Well, deer-
That may be disgusting.
Deer will go after our urine, and just like
Assault.
sheep and deer, yeah,
Sure.
here also, so it's not so sheep.
Really?
Okay, but in addition, near this place where they were holding Nada, there were a fair number of butterflies. And the whole event and location reminded me, not a little bit, of like the Okanagan, perhaps, and like Okanagan barter fair, people having things out on their blankets and selling things, and it had that kind of a feel to it. Anyway, some of the butterflies, as we wandered around the edge of Nada, that we came across is this Fritillaria genus that we don't, I think, have in North America.
Yeah, if you go to Meloria, then we have it. That's just another name for Meloria.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Because some of the other ones we call Polaroid, but this one...
Yeah, that's because there's differences of opinion.
Okay, because it does look like.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is more or less an endemic, just found in the Baikal region, well, from the Baikal region to the Amur, so over towards the Pacific Ocean. And host plant saxifrage. And then the chestnut heath down here, another Symphonoma, so again related to our ringlet, but called common name chestnut heath. And I believe that one's sort of all the way from Asia to, yeah, throughout temperate Eurasia.
So does that imply that there is a chestnut species there?
I think they're referring to the color,
Oh, okay.
I think. Okay. So another Polyamatus, this one common name, greenish mountain blue. Eurasian. Host plants include astragalus, milk veg, and something called Oxytropus.
Oxytropus is just another genus of milkfish.
Okay. Okay.
It uses both.
Loco weed.
Echo here, so is
And don't know if you recognize this guy. Well, shouldn't put the name there, but it's our northern blue.
Yeah. Actually, it looks kind of like our northern blue, too.
Cool.
That must be a mistake.
And a greater fritillaria. And this one, according to some of the authors from the Mongolian butterfly book, were quite helpful when I contacted them by email. And according to this author, that was Argynnis Zaipi. If you can make that call from just a dorsal view, that's pretty impressive.
Well, there's only, there's not many Argynnis in Mongolia. It's probably easier to do it for there than it would be in Europe.
And a couple of other butterflies in that same general tribe. This, I understand, the Mongolian checker spot in one of my names is the male. The male has this dark orangey dorsal, and then a ventral shot here, and also somewhat of an endemic, found in the Baikal drainage and nearby drainages. And the host plant, Barrreca cana, something called pure silver, which apparently is a domestic. It's been domesticated somewhere.
Medicinal.
And this one, we weren't able to nail it down. Perhaps it's a euphydrius, perhaps it's ambiguous. So it's scarce or ambiguous, or both. It's scarce and ambiguous. And here is Orion, the Colorado alpine, which has a really interesting distribution. Orion calleus in Colorado. And then it's sort of hidden by this drop down, but there's another subspecies up here in Siberia, and then 4 subspecies in the area we're in. We're probably right about here, up into Russia, over into the Altai.
Another one's just been discovered in the Ural Mountains.
I guess it has been that far to the west. And apparently this distribution is something on the order of maybe 15,000 years old.
It could be older than that.
Well, the is also interspecific in some plants as well.
Really?
Yeah,
How's that?
it's interspecific in some plants from Central Asia to Colorado.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, though, there's an island in the middle of Yukon of the same species as well.
Oh, really?
So it's fairly recent.
And some of these are maybe like 3 or 4 interglacials old, so so we don't really. It could be a lot older than 15,000.
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether they would infer, how they would inferring that, whether perhaps from the genetics.
Yeah,
but that's
molecular
pretty-
clocks are pretty iffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So this is probably just a subset of the species that are out there, the ones that are shown on the map. So there's others up in Alaska? Or-
No. He was referring to the fact that that kind of distribution is not uncommon in other organisms. It's unusual to find something in Colorado and then on the other side of the globe, and then really not much in between. But it's not as uncommon as that. And there's probably 2% of large genera have that distribution.
A brief interlude of Mongolian music. They range from very high, this whistling is stuff happening in their sinuses. From very low, multiple tones at once.
Yeah, you got a little bit of throat singing going there.
So on a subsequent day, we went more deeply into the national park. With something very similar to fireweed in Olympia.
It's so similar, it is.
Go figure.
We have the other plant in Washington, too.
I'm sorry?
We have the other plant in Washington, too.
Oh, we do, what?
That's chives.
Okay, we thought it was an allium.
It's exactly the same species as chives.
It is. How cool. Cool. So it was like misting and raining most of the day, and still we were able to find these meadow fritillaries, and every one of them was on one of these blooms. We just searched the blooms, and maybe every 10th or 15th or 20th bloom had a meadow fritillary just hanging on, I guess waiting for the rain to clear. So after Lake Hostel, we went back to the capital, did a little bit of sightseeing, major monastery there, downtown. They're being funded by, well, Chinese to the south, the Russians to the north. I think this was supposed to be a Chinese building, somewhat controversial. The horse theme again shows up in their music, in their musical instruments. These are horse head fiddles. and in lots of other aspects of their culture. Managed to get a photo for our solstice card while we were there.
I don't know.
That was a cultural appropriation. Okay, back to our map, which we come back to. So now we set off on this route. And again, we're traveling by Land Cruiser, the main cross-country vehicle there. In most cases, dirt roads, if that. And we'll get up close to the Russian border, move back to the south, and back home.
Was somebody driving with you, or?
Well, all the drivers were all native Mongolians, and one of our people were traveling with a student who spoke Mongolian, gave them all nicknames.
Oh.
So there was fastest driver, knowledgeable driver. I don't know if there was romantic driver. Some of them sang. All seemed to do some kind of music. Anyway, as we headed out, past this giant statue of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan shows up everywhere. That's a big part of their culture. And the location here, this is mostly what we're traveling on. It's just kinds of dirt roads. And this is an area called the Blue Lake of the Black Heart. And some people believe that Genghis Khan is buried on yonder mountain, but they haven't found his tomb, and lots of people hope that they don't. At any rate, we're heading here for a hill where we had lunch, and it also turned out to be a spot for butterflies. Lucked out. So this is where we found the Parnassian, Namian, and this big, showy, beautiful butterfly, and that got folks on the trip pretty excited, interested. They've been interested before, but they were more interested after this. The same butterfly on a nectarine here, and a couple of other Argynnis here, dark green fritillary, and a lesser marbled fritillary. And this is more or less in the Kentai Mountains, close to the Kentai Mountains, that general area.
You said the Parnassian was big. How does it compare to ours?
Bigger. But it wasn't the biggest. I guess I thought initially it was an Apollo, which is even larger, but this is good-sized butterfly. And it ranges in Northeast Asia from the Urals to Korea. Larvae of the Parnassian apparently feed on two kinds of stone crop, sedum and Orostachus.
Yeah, it's a very low to the ground kind of stone cropy thing.
Orostachus is a stone crop.
Yeah, you can find it in gardens sometimes. Not common, but sometimes.
Interesting. And then dark green fritillary, again the range Palearctic from England to Iran to Japan. Uses several violets, so it's pretty widespread. The lesser marbled fritillary range from Spain to Siberia to Japan. Larvae feed on quite a range of plants, many of which I'm not that familiar with, but they're called meadowsweet, dropwort,
Same thing.
stone bramble, which is a rubus saxatilis, raspberry, Oruncus, and spirea. And something called salad burnet.
Also a rose family plant.
Yeah.
Common weed, even around here.
Good. Keep an eye out. Okay, so down the road, just a little bit from lunch spot, were this pond. This is our first white-naped cranes. A pair that were probably nesting there. And this large grizzled skipper, and another ringlet, this one looking more like our satyrs than ringlets, but that's somebody's common name for it.
What's the flower?
The one that the skipper is apparently nectaring on, I think that's a mint.
It's probably Stacky Street in this.
And the larvae for that skipper have been recorded on Agromonia, Helianthemum, Potentilla, Rubus, and Polygala, milkwort family.
Potentilla.
Potentilla, yeah. Just down the road, a major or a smaller monastery actually. A lot of the monasteries were eliminated or torn down during the communist realm, but are being rebuilt and reoccupied. And this was one of those. So at this point, right here, next stop is is a wall. Well, we're on our way to a wall, an archaeological site that folks don't know when it was built. But on our way there, we passed these, which you see often on the road in Mongolia, called deer stones. And they're engraved stones from previous cultures. I think they're at least a couple thousand years old. But you also see places where roads come together, high places, hills and whatnot, cairns, which are called ovos. Every word in Mongolia is spelled in English seems to be spelled a half a dozen different ways. But ovo is spelled O-B-O, O-V-O-O, O-V-O. It's all the same thing. And there's very strong connections between Mongolian spirituality and Tibetan Buddhism, animism, and shamanism. So it's not unexpected that you'd see these things that look like prayer flags on these ovos. And the woman in the center is offering a blessing of fermented horse milk. Fermented horse milk is pretty important. Again,
Did you try it?
Did. It's got a saying.
It what?
It's got a saying. It's
Really?
pretty cool. I mean, yeah. Different people react to it differently, but that was okay.
It was interesting. She didn't like it.
Some of the birds on the steppe, because now we're out of the forested steppe and into the unforested steppe. Golden eagle. These damosel cranes, which were the more common cranes that we saw in a number of locations, often dancing like these ones in the lower right, and a black vulture. The golden eagles, in some portions of Mongolia, particularly in the far west, among the Kazakhs, are used for hunting, and they're reinstituting eagle festivals and with the trained eagles. But that's not the case here in central Mongolia. Again, areas that remind one a lot of eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, Montana. So here's that mysterious wall that goes all the way back to this, this hill, pretty much circles this hill. Pointer's not right here. So we hiked back, and in the process came across these butterflies. Again, related to fritillari's checker spots in that group. This this heath fritillary. The knapweed fritillary, which I apologize for the blurry photograph, but we've run into that before in Sicily, actually, some distance away. And this Saturn, which was the largest, and of course the floppy flight that you associate with.
So those are checker spots, but Europeans don't know anything about our common name, so they call them fritillaries, right?
I think
They are
they're confused.
They're confused, of course.
So what happens do they fly somewhere and then come back, these butterflies? No, like our monarchs?
I don't know about these specifically, but I suspect that these are pretty much local. They, like most of our monarch behavior is pretty unusual in the butterfly world. But I suspect these are pretty much grow up and go through their larval stages and their adult stages and pretty much locally.
I want you to just tell me what you're at. Butterflies of the what?
Oh, you want me to try to pronounce that?
Well, I'd rather you than me.
Ecology harem.
Oh, yeah.
Who's the market? Yeah, this has got some commentary by the folks in the vehicle.
Oh my God, we're dying.
There's a Fords are not unusual here.
Oh shit. Ooh, come on, dinner, come on, dinner. Come on, dinner. Did you get that? Yay! Oh shit.
Oh, what?
So this is our Russian-made cook vehicle. As soon as they stopped there, the thing died and they couldn't get it started. But actually, about an hour later, we did get it started.
It just got wet.
Yeah, it's true. It did get wet. And this is what happens when vehicles sometimes get wet and they don't have bearing buddies. They get, where bearings need to be repacked. But our drivers were completely with it. They had all the tools and everything they needed for whatever problem came up, and here they are repacking wheel bearings. And because we're stopped, and this takes an hour or so, we got to explore around there. And this is a few of the things we found while the bearings were being repacked. There's armored ground cricket, pretty potent looking critter.
That's a female's ovipositor.
Yeah. And actually, it was very mellow.
They're one of my favorite animals. The males get to call the females, and they get all the benefits, right? You know, males call females, and they get to choose which one.
Really?
Yeah.
A reverse.
Of our situation.
Do you know why it needs such a long ovipositor?
I don't. If anybody can figure that out.
What?
Why it needs such a long ovipositor?
Oh, it has to get underneath. It has to go through some pretty tough soil. It has to, the United States pretty deep in the soil.
Maybe because it's so dry?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Mormon crickets are almost precisely the same, and they're in the same kinds of habitats.
Oh, I didn't know that. And then the bufo toad there.
Did you lick it?
Was meditating. It looked to me like it was saying, I'm cool, but I best not push it.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Is it poisonous? Is that what you're trying to say?
I think that may be what Jonathan was hinting at.
What?
The poison
Poisonous?
of licking a
One
frog.
man's poison is another man's intoxication.
Oh.
Try it. You wouldn't want to know.
I don't know any I've heard about it.
Okay. Next time. And a black kite. So, wherever we traveled, there were one kind of problem or another. We're now stuck in a marsh. The diesel, obviously, blowing black smoke.
That's not black smoke, that's mud.
Well, it's also, yeah, it's mud mixed with black smoke.
Why did you stop?
He's stuck in the mud.
Why did I stop the video, or why did we stop there?
Well, no, yeah, I mean, the thing is that as long long as you keep moving, you won't get stuck.
That is just not true, John.
But it's true in the way that it's true that it's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop at the bottom that does. As long as you keep moving, yeah, you're not stuck. But you stop moving. Am I right?
I kind of like that, actually. I hadn't looked at it that way.
Yeah, and our drivers varied in their ability to. We have one very wise older driver who was always the last one to go through and always made it through. But the young Turks, there was particularly one of them who managed to get himself stuck on a fairly.
I presume that's him there, right?
I think that may have been there or something. So here we've got it being too wet. Here we've got it being too dry. This is a camping spot that we were going to that was a pond that had cranes, but it had dried up, and it was a plastic cow skull there. But it was a theme that we ran into everywhere. We talked to people. It was like either very dry year or a very wet year, depending on where they were. Mostly very dry. Next stop, a nature reserve on the Merlin River, and there's an example here. It was considered quite dry, and they operated the nature reserve in such a way that the herders in drought conditions could bring some of their animals into the nature reserve. More like a vulture.
Oh.
Very large bird. And this is the only one I saw, but I think others on our trip saw it another one. The way I've got here is Lmmergeir.
Kind of an interesting tail.
Yes. Yeah, it's got that diamond-shaped tail, which is diagnostic. So some sense of the landscapes in this part of Mongolia. This one above is similar to ones that reminded me a lot of the Palouse, but this is a little sharper than some of those. But there appeared to be hills that must have been blown dust, loess formations, and a gear with herders, with the herds gathered in for the evening.
How many people would be in one of those residences?
Extended family, oftentimes, so maybe grandparents, parents, and a few kids.
Maybe 10 people?
We didn't see them with that many, but it certainly could be.
There's no windows. How does it get light from there?
There's a hole in the top of the gear, and actually it's interesting. So as the sun rises and sets, the light from that hole travels around the inside of the gear, and that's the way you are to walk. There's only one way you are to walk in a gear. You come in, go to the left, and go counterclockwise, and that's the way the sun moves. And they're always set up so that they're facing north.
And are they in communities, or they're how far to the next home?
It depends, but a lot of them are out on their lonesome. And of course they can move them, which is the reason they have them. The herds need to be moved from season to season. So they can pack these up, roll them up, put them on a cart. In the old times, they would haul them with oxen on a cart to a new location. Now lots of times they have a pickup truck or a flatbed or something that they move them on.
Well, the Great Khan lived like this.
Yes, and they had large ones that were, I think, born, that were elevated and could be moved all the time. They were set up semi-permanently and moved location to location.
What season were you there? Was this in spring?
This was July, so we were there for 3 weeks in July.
It looks surprisingly green, at least in that photo.
Yeah, again, some areas it had rain recently, others hadn't, and it just depended.
It's the west, isn't it?
What's that?
There's more rain in July.
Oh, that's right. Okay, Jeanette's reminding me that July is the season of rain there. Yes.
Were they bringing the animals in each evening to avoid predation?
You know, I'm not sure, but that could be. Most of the places have dogs, and the dogs are historically there to protect against wolves. But in a lot of areas, the wolves seem to have been, populations are way down because they're hunted. Even though wolves are honored, there's a sort of weird dichotomy. They may well be bringing them in some cases, to milk them, that sort of thing. There's just some really interesting discussions and books about how the Mongolians treat their herd animals, and it's pretty interesting. There are no fences, virtually no fences, so they're free to travel. The horses are pretty much handled like the wild horses would be, with a single stallion and a group of mares. So it's a different way of handling animals than we have. Anyway, moving right along, head to the south, and the steppes flatten. This is an area that is also preserved but very heavily grazed, and we aren't seeing many butterflies in these areas. The wildflowers, to the extent there are wildflowers, are very low, and a lot of it's just grazed to the ground. And I think when you get out of the car, you smell onions, but that's largely what you're seeing.
What are those big white things down there? All
Those
over.
are sheep and goats.
We call them range maidens.
Dragons.
Here they are on the move. So further to the south, Mongolian gazelles travel 35 to 45 miles per hour. Wolves are there, we hunt them. And this toad-headed agama off to the right. Interesting behavior. Apparently when it rains, it will squat down on its front legs and raise its hind legs. The water will run down its back and into its mouth.
Oh.
So speaking of rain, so it's been very dry. Now we get into the Gobi and it's flooding. This place called 70 Springs.
And welcome to the Gobi Desert.
People are not going to believe.
Is that a dinosaur up there?
That's a dinosaur. Caught him in the act of running. Very lucky. So I think it's a theme park, and we'll see why dinosaurs. So we are in this area. So I mentioned the Yol Valley. This is the southern extreme of the Altai, and we were able to hike in this area. Gerbil.
It's a gerbil.
It's a gerbil.
Is that where gerbils that we have to pass? Is that where they came from?
I wouldn't be a bit surprised. The pica, yes. Dorian pica.
That's actually a pica.
That is a pica.
I was going to say, it looks like a pica.
It is a pica.
That's why it looks like one. That's what I hear.
And for those are the very sharp eye. I see right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's an ibex. Standing guard over his harem, apparently. Didn't move for like, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes. Just stood there. We thought maybe cardboard cut out for it. I don't know. A couple butterflies that we've seen before, northern blue and many-eyed ringlet. One of the other locations, Flaming Cliffs, this was made famous by Roy Chapman Andrews, who was the model for Indiana Jones. Ran a large troop of archaeologists in there, not archaeologists, but paleontologists in there in the 1920s. And this is where they discovered that dinosaurs came from eggs. First dinosaur eggs were discovered here. And this is an area where we would not have expected to find any butterflies, but there were two butterflies doing their spiral dance over the flaming cliffs. I tried for a while. I didn't have the speed and agility, but we gave the net to our drivers, and they had the speed and agility, and we will hear Captain.
Where's no?
It's something like a painted lady. I've seen a painted lady in China. This one looks a little different. It's also
Ah, you got it!
excellent.
Wow. Second one.
Whoa! Yay!
So we got both of them, and this driver, one driver, knowledgeable driver, and fast driver, were able to catch both of them. And here they are.
Amazing.
And this is the one on the right, the butterfly that we still have. So we have here in the U.S. painted lady. I'm not sure about.
Now, you got it right, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, the one on the right. The one on the left.
No, you got the one on the left, right.
Do I? All right. So two different species spiraling together in the flaming cliffs. Just mind-boggling.
You got to write a poem like that.
We can do that. And so as the sun set, it's not quite the last slide, but we're close. We had vodka there. We had a fair amount of vodka there, and boiled meat. It's pretty cool.
Wait, vodka and boiled meat?
Separately.
Oh.
We did not boil the meat in vodka, but that's one of our second to last stop here, Garnell's sand dunes that are 1,000 meters high, and camel ride. And there's another video here, probably hard to see, but here are the camels down here moving between these ponds. The water, the rain soaks into the dunes and then leaks out the skirts, the bottom, and into these ponds, which is where camel herders were keeping the camels. So back up north, heading back north now. And this is sort of what it was like traveling along over the steppe. All these braided roads everywhere, and sometimes a fairly high rate of speed, and sometimes what happens is when you're... So we stopped here to repair the shock absorber and located another butterfly, common blue, Polymatus icarus, and a black stork, which is very common and not often spotted. So the breakdowns had their distinct value. And pretty much our last stop here, this is the old capital of Mongolia, Karakoram, from the time of the Khans, the early Khans, and the largest monastery, the monks there with their cell phones and prayer wheels. An oboe here, people bring their skulls from their favorite horses up to the oboes, hoping that they'll be reincarnated. At least that's the version we heard. And that's the end of the budget.
I want to go over that rainy season is in July.
That's
Well, it's rainier there than rainier.
Oh yeah, I can believe that's too cold.
There's not a whole lot of precipitation in the winter compared to later in the summer.
It's like a great flame. It's humid and in the summer, dry and slightly snow.
That was great, man.
Thank you.
I almost want to go there.
I understand that.
I want to go to Tuva first, though.
Tuva was just around the corner from Hopsville.
Yeah.